Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff. That's very nice of you. You know, it's a wonderful thing when the sheriff introduces you. And it's especially good when he introduces you and you're not cuffed as you're being introduced to the jailer. So I want to say thanks. It's good to be back here. And I remember very vividly the night that he was talking about what a good time we had. And Kay Robertson from Duck Dynasty was here. Wonderful family, great people. I mean, anybody that duck hunts can't be bad, right? But I'm here today because you in North Carolina have an incredible opportunity to send to Congress somebody that I am convinced would make not just North Carolina and the 9th District, but would make America a great congressman, and that's Mark Harris. And I want to say thank you for coming today. I got to know Mark and Beth a few years ago, and they were contemplating at that time for Mark running for the U.S. Senate. The kind of questions that he asked and the heart that he demonstrated told me, you know, he really is working through this, not politically, but spiritually. It was a tough decision. And he ran a remarkably great race. I came here and campaigned with him and for him. It's probably why he didn't win. But I just saw in him an incredible ability to communicate and to articulate. And I often would sit there at an event, I would just marvel at how good he was in taking really the most important messages of our day to day and the issues and just presenting them in a way that everybody in that room understood them. Doing it with real compassion for people and a heart for folks that I thought was just fantastic. Obviously, I'd like to have seen his race turn out a little differently. Then again, I'd like to have seen mine turn out a little differently too, come to think of it. But there's just some things that we have to remember. Sometimes our detour becomes our destination. We never understand. I lost my very first race when I ran in Arkansas. And I didn't understand that, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it put me on the course that looking back, I realized was a better course that God wanted me on than the one that I had chosen for myself. I think the Lord has a way of doing that kind of thing. The sheriff was very kind. He made a great introduction. One of the things he said, I don't know a lot about Governor Huckabee's education, all that stuff. And frankly, I'm glad he didn't go into all that biographical stuff. Be honest with you, I think education is incredibly valuable, but truth is, even more importantly than having somebody who's educated, I want someone who's smart. Now some of you say, well, I thought that's what that meant. No, there's a difference. I know some people who are really, really well educated. They're just not very smart. And I know some people, a lot of them are in Washington. Yes, sir, they are. We've sent a bunch of them there. And then there are some people who aren't that well educated but are really smart. And I've often said that if I am driving down some country road on a rural Arkansas county highway late at night and my car breaks down, far more interesting to me than to have somebody pull up in a BMW with an MBA from Harvard. Give me a couple of good old boys in a pickup truck with some tools who know how to fix my car. They may not be educated, but they're smart. And there's a makeup artist in Little Rock. Her name is Nancy, and she is really terrific. She's got a high school education, but she's the first call makeup person for television appearances and if there's any movies that are being done in the state. And again, she's not educated with an Ivy League degree, but I'm going to tell you something, she's smart. One night she was out with some girlfriends and they were at a restaurant eating dinner. She had to be at the studio the next morning at 5 a.m. for an early call, and so as they got chatting, she had ridden with one of her friends and said, hey, can you take me home? I got to get up really, really early in the morning. Her friend said, well, Nancy, we just want to visit a while. And I said, okay, I'll sit here. A few minutes later, she said, hey, do you think maybe now we could go, you could take me home? I said, no, I want to sit here and visit a while. Well, Nancy by this time was getting a little antsy. She wanted to go home. So she took out her cell phone, called a cab company in Little Rock, which there's not many cabs in Little Rock, so they charge you a fortune. And just to get from the restaurant to her house, they were going to charge her $30. She could have rented a car for less than that. So she wasn't going to pay that. She looked across the parking lot from the restaurant where she was, and there was a Papa John's pizza just across the parking lot. She got on her phone, she called Papa John's, and she said, I'd like to buy a pizza, and I'd like for it to be delivered to my home. I said, okay, what's your address? And she told him, and she says, and I'm right next door, I'd like to come over and ride home with it. For $12, she got a large cheese pizza and a ride home. Now, she may not be well educated, but that's smart. What you have in Mark Harris is somebody who has a really sterling education. But he's one of those rare people. He's also smart. And he understands what the issues are, how to articulate them, and how to stand for them, and with you in those issues. I'm so happy to be here today on his behalf. Delighted to endorse him, to encourage your support of him. It's a special election, and so that means that really there won't be that many people going out to vote. A lot of people won't even know there's an election. And if they're not going to vote for Mark, let's keep it that way. No reason to ruin a good day. So if you talk to somebody and say, are you going to vote for Mark Harris? Absolutely. Then you make sure they go to the polls and don't let them stay home that day. Go pick them up, take them with you, make many trips to the polling place. If they say they're going to vote for Mark, every vote is going to matter because only a handful of votes will decide this election, and that really is the truth. If somebody is not going to vote for Mark, tell them the election has been postponed to August. Let's not be stupid here. Mark has the kind of integrity that we desperately need in Washington. If he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. If he says he'll stand for something, he'll stand for it. All those years in the pulpit, he didn't always say the most popular things. He just said the things that he knew were right. And after a lifetime of that kind of habit, I think we can be very confident that when he gets to Washington, he's not going to be something that you won't recognize. And folks, that's worth a lot today in politics. There are some good people in Washington. We've got some good members of Congress, good senators, just not enough of them. And Mark will not just be a backbencher, he will be a leader. There's no doubt in my mind. Everything he's ever done, he's ended up being a leader of it. I want you to realize how important it would be to have someone like him not just go and sit there and listen and make a few votes, but someone who will become a true leader. And I will believe that when Mark Harris is standing on the floor of the House of Representatives, what you hear coming from him is what you would be praying somebody would have the courage to go and say. And when you see how he votes, you're not going to throw your paper down in disgust and say, I can't believe he did that. You're going to take another sip of coffee and say, I knew we could trust him. And I believe we can. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't think we could trust him. I got to trust you to go out and make sure people vote. Not just you, that's important. Multiply yourselves many times over. Make a minimum of 10 people on a list and make sure they go vote for Mark. I cannot tell you how important this is because a June 7th election means it's the only thing on the ballot. People have to really want to go and vote. And a lot of people just say, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to fool with it. And a lot of them won't even remember it. My first election that I won was a race for lieutenant governor in a special election in July. I learned something. Nobody thought I could win. I was outspent 10-1. The Clintons put all the money in my opponent. They personally selected him. He had been their chief legal counsel when Clinton was governor. He had the money, he had the press. Everybody just knew he was going to win. It was a done deal until we beat him. Because we did something they hadn't thought about. They had TV ads and radio ads, and they had all the lobbyists and everybody. We just had people that believed that it was time for something different. And if you will join with Mark and put your shoulder to the wagon and push hard, folks, he'll be your next congressman. And I don't believe he'll disappoint you. Welcome, please, your next Congressman, Mark Harris. God bless you, man.